The debut album from the Norwegian-born singer-songwriter Aurora, going by the stage name Aurora, delivers a variance of electronic pop songs that switch from forceful with a murky undertone to light and delicate, combining together to create what is essentially a pretty solid electro-pop album and a promising debut from the teenager. Unlike some other previous pop albums that I've reviewed so far, All My Demons Greeting Me as a Friend has a sense of restraint in the production and instrumentation which allows Aurora's vocals to captivate and steal the spotlight, creating a clear album and comes off as rather beautiful. There are, however, a few moments in the album that do stunt this from being a great debut release, both production-wise and lyrically. Instrumentally, the majority of the album has a degree of sparseness to it that eases the listener into the track before the instrumentation kicks up a notch and becomes more encompassing. Alternatively, you have a couple of simple, sweet piano-driven tracks with the synth lines hanging in the background, creating a wall of noise, and then you have the more energetic, forceful instrumentals that add to the variance. Even though the album for the most part creates this airy and trippy vibe, when the instrumentation kicks up in volume, it adds to this album's appeal. The glaring admission in this album is the lack of any memorable melodies. It's pure percussion and synth-driven instrumentals which are by no ways terrible, but a few melodies would have been appreciated. It's not like this isn't possible, just look at an electro pop act like Churches. Also, there are a few tracks where the percussion tends to drown out the real instruments. For the majority of this album, it's filled with electronic-driven drum beats and accompanying synth lines and other electronic effects thrown into the blender, but there are a handful of moments where you get real instruments included into some songs that add to this album's enjoyment, whether it's the electric guitar rhythm on Running with the Wolves, the inclusion of piano on tracks like I Went Too Far, Through the Eyes of a Child, Lucky, Murder Song and Blackwater Lilies, or when the electronic beats take a shift in direction and go for a more energetic and lively approach like on the tracks Warrior and Conqueror, or when the synths have more prominence, whether it's the synth strings on Running with the Wolves, the light synth line on Blackwater Lilies, or the layered vocal harmonies on the tracks Runaway and Home. Thematically, the album has a real sense of vulnerability and rawness that deals with themes of breakups, longing for love interest, and even an underlying theme about mortality. For an artist of her age, Aurora manages to pull off some of these themes very convincingly, and what also helps is that she's not only got the vocal abilities to do so, but she is also able to convey her emotions terrifically, and her tones are both haunting and startlingly beautiful. But as it is with the song structure to a lot of these tracks, they never really get a chance to develop into something incredible. The basics of the foundations are laid, but in terms of depth and extension of what good ideas are found in these tracks, the overall result can often be somewhat lacking and frustrating. The opening track Runaway paints the picture of Aurora clearly missing those she holds close to her and is longing to return home, but without any sort of clarity as to where she is in relation to this song's message or what sort of tribulations she's experienced. I really struggle to connect. Despite the fragility of the presentation, the background harmonies along with the bright synth lines and drum beat that kicks up in volume 2/3 of the way through is pretty but has an unstable backbone. Conqueror contrasts completely, a heavy kick drum that maintains its resonance along with the keyboards, piano and buzzing synth, the underlying message about finding strength within yourself and not being overcome by whatever comes your way. Aurora herself is trying to become the conqueror of her own demons, and with that punchy instrumental, it's a convincing number and one I really like. Similar in style is the track Warrior, another one of the album's more upbeat tracks. The lively drum beat, low drone synth lines, synth bass and keyboard notes, with the theme of being brought down by life's darkness yet she's determined to battle through, and even though the line "let love conquer your mind" is rather corny and pretty lame if I'm being honest, again it comes off as believable and is a song that I can't help but find enjoyable. On the opposite end of the spectrum is the song Through the Eyes of a Child, offset by the combination of piano and low synth which creates this gorgeous wall of noise. Aurora contemplates that perhaps to avoid the darkness and scars, it would be best to envisage the world through the eyes of a child, where everything isn't so bad and would avoid the hurt and see the good things in life. The theme of vulnerability and longing for a sense that things may get better can be found in the song I Went Too Far, where Aurora is clearly enraptured with her love interest, even to the point where she's on her knees begging and kisses the ground beneath the guy's feet, and yet he doesn't seem to reciprocate her feelings. It's one of the more graphic and hyperbolic of songs, made even more striking with the seemingly upbeat style of music, buzzing synths and upbeat percussion that's brought in after the opening piano chords. Definitely one of the most memorable tracks. Those are some of the good moments. Some of my least favourite moments can be found on songs like Winterbird, where I feel the synth organ is fighting for some airspace from the percussion, plus the second verse where Aurora sounds like she's just given up on completing the verse and supplemented that by providing a simple harmony which comes off as lazy. The disparity in the track Murder Song, which is this grisly encounter where Aurora meets her end by the hands of some man, simply so that he can protect her from the dark things in life, which, considering that she tries to become this tough warrior and conqueror, it comes off as rather jarring, and in turn, Aurora herself comes off as quite weak in the process. The worst offender by far would be the song Under the Water, probably my least favourite track, which sees Aurora and her partner take their own lives by jumping into the ocean. This takes Murder Song and amps it up to 100. At least in Murder Song she has no control since someone's holding the weapon to her head, but when she's actively committing suicide after all this emphasis on battling through the darkness and trying to become a stronger person in the process, the narrative loses its shine, and I'm quite disappointed, truth be told. Nothing in the build-up leads to this outcome, and it's really off-putting. Nevertheless, for all this album's faults, the basic song structures, the melody lacking instrumentals, the disparity in lyrics which causes this desire for a strong young woman to be wiped away by the end of the album, irrespective of the eerie and dark imagery those songs create, on their own and under a completely different narrative it would have worked, but keeping in mind the earlier tracks, it does lose a handful of points. I still feel this is a strong debut, and I do feel that the best is still to come from Aurora. Overall, I score this album a 70 out of 100.